All right. I'm sweating.
Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan in New York City, in studio with Charlotte Wilder. Oh, it's like The Price is Right when I'm holding the microphone.
Yeah.
This is such a weird-looking mic, by the way.
Bob Barker Elhassan. I've always said. I liked your middle name.
I'm more of a Drew Carey guy myself.
Oh.
That's right. Shout out to Bob Barker. You're old. That's why they got you up out of here. Is he still alive?
Don't know.
Oh.
I think he might have passed on to the spirit realm. I also don't know, though. He could still be alive. Sorry. It's like when, you remember someone tweeted, like, Sheryl Crow is rolling over in her grave, and she quote tweeted it and was like, I'm still alive.
I'm still alive, yeah.
Bob Barker quote tweet this. Also, nobody talks enough about Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah. Great improv work. See, that's what we just did right there. Yes, and. Yes, and.
Yes,
and we've got a great show for you today.
Yes, and we do.
Yes, it's Wednesday.
Yep.
It's been a while. I feel like it's been a while since we've done this.
Word count?
Word count Wednesday. There you go.
I know. We're going to do a rapid fire word count, and I'm very. Oh, Bob Barker died last August.
Yeah, and somewhere Bob Barker's widow is sitting there like,
I know.
Maybe I'll watch some basketball content to take my mind off of my poor Bob.
Sorry to the Barker family.
Yep.
And I mean that. Anyway, sharp left turn. Joe Dumars and the competition committee thinks that there might be too much offense in the NBA.
I like this quote. It's like, remember he talked to Vinny Goodwill a few weeks back and went over a lot of things. And one of the things they touched on was offense. And at the time he said, the question is posed to each one of these groups. Is the balance out of whack? Do we need to balance this more to allow defenses to defend more, to do more on the defensive end? By and large, people are saying it wouldn't be bad to have a little bit more defense. You don't want it where defense can just, grab and hold, and you don't want it when the offense has just this huge advantage either.
Right.
So those words from a couple of weeks ago now have escalated to at least they're going to look at it, Charlotte.
Yeah, the competition committee is going to look at it. That's comprised of GMs, coaches. Is it players are on it?
I think there are a couple of players on the competition committee as well.
So, okay, my question to you, Amin, is everybody loves to talk about this. Everybody loves to. Sports shows are like, is offense a bad thing? Is there too much offense? And everybody's always like, why are they scoring so much?
Yeah.
And it feels like everybody wants there to be a simple answer to this. Everybody wants it to be like they are too strict. The rules are too strict on defenders. Mm-hmm. Or people are like, well, everybody's just gotten so much better. What's the breakdown? What's the Venn diagram of those two things, in your opinion?
So it's like all the boring answers. It's a little bit of everything.
It's a little nuanced.
It's nuanced. It's a little bit of everything. But the reality is, Charlotte, one thing that we know, you can say, oh, it's because teams play faster. And it's true. The 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns of 2005 that were like, oh, my God, they're running all the time. Today would be the slowest team by far.
Is that true?
Yeah. They're the slowest team. And they would be taking the least amount of threes in the league, right? So pace has gone up, number one.
Yep.
The number of threes taken has gone up.
Yep.
And I know this is going to upset some old heads, but like if you, as a team, took more threes shooting 35% than twos shooting 45%, right? One would say, oh, this guy's a great shooter, shooting 45% on all these jump shots. The other guy shooting 35% on these jump shots. He's not that great. But if he's taking threes, the 35% shooter, and the 45% shooter's taking long twos, guess who's scoring more points on the same amount of shots? It's the three-point shooter. So you have all of these kind of factors that are like gumming up the system.
Right.
Having said that, right, even though, yes, teams are going to score more because we play more up-tempo. Yes, teams are going to score more because we shoot more threes. Having said that, Charlotte, of the top 40 offenses in the history of basketball, 38 have occurred since the COVID season.
Wait, sorry, what? All but two of the best offenses in the history of the NBA
have
occurred since 2020.
Since COVID, yes. So clearly this isn't like, oh, generation is better. Like, hold on. Many of these players played before this boom. In fact, the Golden State Warriors of Kevin Durant, that first year when they won 67 games and it was the most perfect basketball ever, that's like outside the top 40.
Methinks there might be some outside factors going on.
Right. And I think most of all, it is defenders feel compromised.
Yeah.
You cannot touch anybody on the perimeter. And I think that's another thing. Offensive players have gotten a lot better at hunting fouls, right? If you look at the way James Harden plays, the way Luka Doncic plays, and it's not an aesthetic complaint. Or like, oh, they're cheating. Like, no, they're doing what the rules allow.
Right.
But when you allow it to get exploited like that, it adds to this thing where defenders are in a damned if I do, damned if I don't. It's like, if I try to kind of get up on them, I risk putting myself in jeopardy of catching these fouls.
Right.
If I'm like, well, okay, can't get up on them, let me try and back up. Well, that's all the space these great offensive players need to do whatever they want. And so it's like catch-22.
And this is the rant that Steve Kerr goes on like once every 2 months at this point in the season. He's like, we have built a game with rules where defenders cannot do anything. And he always talks about, he's like, offenders have become so good at drawing fouls, and that's a part of the game. Right.
So the rule changes that they implemented in 2004, 2005 to open up the game, because younger watchers, like, you don't understand. It was horrendous. Don't listen to these old heads say, oh, I remember when it used to be. It was ugly to watch. Like 90 to 89 games are not cool to watch because there's a lot of holding and not a lot of freedom of motion.
Weren't they
right?
averaging like 95 points a game before, like in 2004?
Yeah, and again, like the idea is that if I were, oh, this is cool. Let me do this. I'll walk over here because you have a basket right here, right? See that? Oh, yeah, we got a basket right here.
Wow.
So as an offensive player, I could, when I would cut across the lane, let's say I hit the top of the key and then I cut across the lane, everybody here in the paint as a defender could take pot shots at me as I go through. So it was either go get buffeted in between that or stay my ass out here. Let me get back in my shot. Stay my ass out here and just like swinging around or whatever. Right. So it was a lot more physical. The people who were inside were bigger and stronger and were the people who could either take or deliver the abuse or, were just, I guess, gluttons for punishment. So that was one thing. And then on the perimeter, if I'm dribbling the ball, the defensive player could put his hand on me. One of the things they used to do is they put the hand on the hip and steer you. So even if I'm trying to go this way, they're like, no, you're not. You're going this way.
Right.
Or they would like cage you with arms. So they got rid of that stuff, which is good. But the problem is they made it so that in any of these instances, any contact is technically a foul. I'm not saying they call it every time. But if I'm dribbling with my back to the basket, the defender can have his forearm arm bar like that in my back. The moment I reverse pivot and face this way, now it's like, I got to get my hands up.
Right.
So if you are James Harden and you're starting in this position and then you rip through and face, the defender's like, I got to get my hands off real quick. Because if I don't, if I'm still kind of reaching out as I just spat in my arm, if I'm still reaching out, then they've got the ability to rip up and through. And I know what people are saying, oh, they changed that rule. The rip through and up isn't a shooting foul anymore. It's not, but it's still a foul.
Right.
It's still a foul. And all of these things make it so defenders, like, even when he's got his back to me, I'm going to try and defend with my chest.
Right.
Because they won't call that. So all of these rules make it very hard for any defense to be sound. So then the only way you can guard a guy like that is what? Is, okay, now I got to get help defense. So now, I'm guarding James Harden here. You, Charlotte, who would be guarding, let's say, Kawhi Leonard or whatever, you've got to come over here and like almost stand in his line of sight, right? So
and then
now
Kawhi's open.
Now Kawhi's open. And even if they go to Kawhi and you're back on Kawhi, that someone had to help you out here. And so there's another pass all the way in the corner.
Yeah.
So all of these kind of things all emanate from the same point, which is the guy with the ball facing the basket, you cannot touch him. And once you start with that and then sprinkle in, oh, by the way, if any of these guys cut this way, you can't kind of dislodge them on their cuts.
Yeah.
And then you sprinkle in, oh, by the way, they're setting it all up so that someone's going to get an open three. And then you sprinkle in, oh, by the way, they're moving faster up the court, even after scores. Like, all of those things are now conspiring to give you this offensive explosion.
So if you could change one rule, or if you could make one tweak, what do you think would make the biggest impact in letting defenders defend without turning it back into, like, slog ball?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things.
It's a little too naughty to be able to say that. It would have to be like several incremental changes,
Yes.
it feels like, rather than one rule that would fix this.
So some people talked about the 3-point line is too close in the corners. It's 23 feet 9 inches around above the break. But once it gets to the corners, it becomes a straight line. So people are saying just make it continue out and then meet the sideline. So there's no corner threes now.
Okay.
Like that's just a long
I was going to say,
two.
but then they're out of bounds. And it's like, well, that's the point.
That's the point. The point is that you can't hit a 3-pointer from there. And given that if we're doing action on one side of the floor, the absolute furthest point from the ball is the opposite corner.
Yeah.
And so that's, by definition, the hardest 3-pointer to close out on. That is also the highest efficiency shot other than a layup or a free throw. So now it's like we've made that shot a little less more efficient. It can still exist. You could still stand in the corner, do that spacing, hit that shot, but instead you're getting 3, now you're getting 2.
But that doesn't do anything about defense. That just cuts down on scoring.
It just cuts down on scoring, which might be the only way because I do believe I'd rather watch Luka Doncic and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and all these great players do amazing things than watch them get bear hugged.
Yeah.
Like that's just not appealing. And by the way, that's not basketball either. Because that was the whole thing. It's like these guys are wrestling now. They're not playing basketball. It's not about the skill of a defender moving his feet or whatever. It's just like, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to restrict your movement physically rather than with anticipation.
Well, you heard it here first. Well, you probably didn't hear it here first. But move the 3.
But you heard it here.
But you heard it here.
You heard it here.
You heard it here.
Steve Kerr, head coach of the Warriors, signed a new extension worth roughly $35 million for 2 more years. It lines up right with the end of Steph Curry's current contract, so kind of gives a little wait and see for everybody.
Will you look at that?
It's one of those things, one of those subtle actions that I think people take for granted, but I think speaks volumes, right?
In what way? From like the contract itself or the timing of it?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it, right? Obviously, the money is the money. He's one of the top 15 coaches of all time as picked by NBA 75, right? He's won 4 titles. He's been in the finals 6 times as a coach, right? Like, the bona fides speak for themselves, right? And I think Steve Kerr is also one of those guys who rarely can say, oh, but I walked into this situation and I took a team that was a good team, a decent team, and made them into a juggernaut, right? Without a whole lot of wholesale changes personnel-wise. So I think that's why, sometimes you say, well, how much is it him and how much is it the talent? But it's like the talent was there. And then
it's like the last homegrown team, maybe.
Right. In the same way that, decades earlier, his former head coach, Phil Jackson, who was an assistant coach in Chicago, and they were a good team, and they were knocking on the door, but they clearly became something else when he became head coach. So Steve gets to take a lot of the credit in that way where it's not questioned. But I think the other part of this is knowing Steve personally. This is a guy who's always been about work-life balance and always been like, I don't need to do this. Like, I can just go home and hang out with my family. And so for Steve at this juncture where it looks like more than any other time, it looks teetering. Like, because after the championships, there was like, the Warriors aren't good. But it was a lot of it was like, they're hurt. Clay's hurt. Clay's out. Now Steph is hurt. Now Draymond's hurt. Like, so it's a lot of that stuff. Right? And then everyone gets healthy. They make the Wiggins acquisition. They win another title. Mm-hmm. Now here we are. They're all healthy. And they're gunning for a long playoff run. But the reality is we've never felt shakier about the trio of Steph, Draymond, and Clay than right now.
I think the only way that anyone would believe in this team is if Steve signed that extension. Steve Kerr says he's out. And it's like,
it feels like, okay, this thing has run its course, right? In the same way that when Phil Jackson left Chicago, when Phil Jackson left L.A. the first time, it felt like it run its course, and it had. And so, this is a big vote of confidence. And again, I can't stress enough, like, if this were Tom Thibodeau or Eric Spoelstra or, like, one of these other, like, I'm like, I don't know if these guys really want a life outside of basketball. No offense, but, like, I get, like, these guys are so
driven,
not only driven, but it's like their identity is so wrapped up in this.
Yeah, not that Steve Kerr's not driven. Steve Kerr's very driven.
driven,
But you
but
know what I mean? It's like they need this as a part of who they are.
I can't imagine Tom Thibodeau. I can't imagine it. I worked with him for a year at ESPN, and he's a lovely person. But like you could tell, I need to get back, man. Like I'm not trying to do this chilling thing.
Yeah.
Right. Eric Spoelstra, same way. Like he's been working continuously since like 1995. Right. Like on this crazy train to greatness. Steve Kerr is on that train as well. But you know what he's done along the way?
Taking a few seats.
Yeah, you know what? You know how like the old Amtrak, you stop, I'm going to New Orleans, but you know what? I'm going to stop off here in Albuquerque, see what's going on over here. All right, and get back on the next train. That's what Steve Kerr's been doing with most of his career post-playing. And so in that regard, I just kind of feel like if he didn't feel like this thing was up to snuff or kosher, he would have been out. He would have been like, I don't need this. I'll just play this out and then go chill with my family.
He's putting his $35 million where his mouth is.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It sounds great. Speaking of a lot of money, just in general, LeBron James and his son Bronny. This is a man that LeBron James gave his same name and then said, my son who's playing at USC, who is not as good as everybody in the league by a mile, he went on to tweet a few months ago, people forget this, that his son was actually better than some of these cats in the league.
Yeah. First of all, I thought his name was Bronald.
Richard Pritchard. Call back for the day one. So, I mean, LeBron James tweeted a few days ago about how everybody needs to leave his son alone. Like, oh, everybody needs to stop speculating. He's his own kid, blah, blah, blah. This comes after he has been talking his son up, saying, I want to play with my son. His opt-out is June 29th. Yep. The draft is June 27th.
Yep.
That's not an accident. So LeBron takes those tweets down. Do you think Bronny got to him first, or his wife Savannah got to LeBron James
that's
first?
a good question. So I'm trying to imagine the James household.
Yes.
And scenario one is Bronald walking in like, Dad, I told you about this. This is so embarrassing. Oh my God, how am I going to go back to school now? I'm never going back to school. And Dad's like, all right, I'll take it down.
Yeah.
Or scenario two, he tweets it and like sits back real like self-satisfied and smug, and then Savannah just walks in and stares at him.
Yeah, she
and he's
doesn't.
He's like,
I got it. Sorry, never mind.
Not a word said.
She walks in, takes his phone, enters the passcode, deletes it herself.
Oh, I don't have her deleting it. I have her like Jedi mind tricking him into.
Yeah. She doesn't have to say.
I don't have to like. I don't have to.
She doesn't have to say anything.
I don't have to lift the finger. That's Savannah. That's the queen of the house, right? But we were talking about this before we were recording about the immense pressure it must be to be LeBron James Jr. and to choose to play basketball as your path. Because the reality is, in some ways it helps, obviously. In some ways it hurts. If his name were LeBron Jackson, I think he'd be obviously a good college player and maybe would be able to scrap his way to get to the league. But no one would ever have that expectation on him of like, your dad did this and you are, right? Yeah. Versus now, he does have doors open for him, but at some point, the expectation, like, well, this is LeBron's son, you're not that good, right?
Well, I think the thing about Nepo babies in general is that the door is open, but like if you're very bad at what you do, you're A, not going to get as far as your parents did, and B, it's going to be deeply embarrassing because you didn't get as far as your parents did. Or you were so far behind your parents.
Now, here's the wild part.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times when we talk about these Nepo babies, like, you'll never be what your dad or your mom was, right? But then you look at what they actually accomplished, and in a vacuum, we're like, pretty freaking good. So I learned this from TikTok the other day.
Oh, should be good and accurate.
This is mind-blowing, right? Like, so the guy who sang the theme song to the Disney animated show, The Gummy Bears.
I'm with you.
All right. Was also the guy who was the singing voice of Simba in The Lion King, the movie in 1994, the adult Simba, right? Is the same guy who was the lead singer for Toto.
Shut the front door.
The craziest part is, this guy is the son of composer John Williams. If you don't know who John Williams is,
stop it.
Jaws, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, like all of these iconic theme music for movies. John Williams is the guy who composed.
Wait.
He's the greatest composer ever.
John Williams' son was the guy from Toto, as in Africa and Hold the Line?
Yes. Right? So If I told you there was a guy who did all these things, you'd say, wow, what an amazing career this guy's had,
Totally.
right? Then if I tell you, oh, his dad is John Williams, you're like, whoa, you little punk ass, you ain't doing.
I do think when we talk about Bronny, obviously he has a lot of money, a lot of opportunities because of who his dad is. I still think that a lot of people often use money and opportunity and status as a way to be like, well, how can you feel bad for him, or how could you want something else for him? And I do think that the psychological weight of what he has to deal with as a young person trying to become his own person, I'm not in his head. I don't know. This is pure speculation. I can't imagine that it's light. Amin.
No, it's absolutely got to be heavy. Now, this is your cue, internet, to be like, oh, yeah? What about a kid growing up with no parents living in a poverty? Like, guys, we get it. We're just saying, like, it's not it looks easy. It's not easy. All right, Charlotte, it's Wednesday, so get them paws ready. Word Count Wednesday. That's right. We ask each other questions, and we've got to answer those questions in 10 words or less. And how do we figure out when we got to 10 words?
We count on our fingers.
There you go. It's so high-tech.
So high-tech.
Eyebrow. All right, Charlotte, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I want to go first.
Okay, here we go. Charlotte.
Yes.
Your question is.
Yes.
How motivating and team-building do you think Raptors coach Darko Rajakovic's pizza party promise really was for the young squad?
Huge.
That's just one word.
I think it was huge. First of all, okay, so
that's it. Oh, that was it.
That was it.
One word. Oh,
it was huge.
A new personal best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because listen to me. So Darko promised his team if they won 3 straight, he would take them to dinner.
Right.
You could read that as pathetic. But this is the Raptors. They're in 12th. They have not been good. Scotty Barnes, however, he was an all-star. Yes. He had a triple-double the other night. I mean, things are looking up. So Darko's like, I'll take you to dinner. You won 3 straight. And the team is like, no. You know what we would like, Mr. Darko? We would like a pizza party.
That's so amazing.
Pure.
Hey, do you guys want to go to St. Elmo's, for example?
You want to go to Keen's? You want to go, pick your poison.
Yeah, it's one of these, 5-star, super hard to get reservation restaurants. Nope.
I want a pizza party. And first of all, this makes me realize just how young NBA players are. They are children, literally. Most of them are not 21 yet on the Raptors. I don't know if that's true, but it feels true, so we're going to go with it.
They're a lot closer to 21 than they are to any other age. How about that?
There you go. So I think it's pure. I think this is one of those things where, do you remember being in school and your teacher was like, we'll give you a pizza party, and that was just like,
if we can make it to 7th period.
If we can make it.
Without anybody interrupting, right? If we can make, if your attendance is perfect for this month, we're going to have a pizza party.
One person fucks that up, pardon my French. No pizza party, that person is ostracized. That person does not get picked first at recess. That person is a problem because a pizza party is the most motivating thing you can do for a group of young people. Darko, way to go.
He did it.
Also, it is worth noting that the Hawks are in 10th. Trae Young just got hurt. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks.
Yes.
If the Raptors keep winning, they could inch into that 10th spot from 12 and potentially be in the play-in tournament.
And to that point, again, this is why I love the play-in tournament, because in a normal society that we used to live in pre-pandemic, the Raptors would have been like, well, game over. We're done. Let's just tank this out and try and get ping pong balls. But now there is an incentive, right?
Yeah.
To keep fighting even when the season should be over, because it's not over yet.
It's not over yet.
Thank you to the Miami Heat for proving to everybody, it's not over yet.
Amin.
Yes.
Chris Paul's return to the Warriors last night in their 123-112 win over the Wizards. How should the Warriors be feeling about the rest of the season after Chris Paul came off the bench and helped them to that win?
Pretty good.
Okay.
All right. Shout out to Larry David. So the Warriors have one of the easiest schedules down the stretch. They've been beset by injuries. They really haven't had everybody at the same time. They underwent one of the biggest tragedies I think any team could go under, which is a member of the squad passed away, right? Yeah. But now everything is starting to coalesce and come together. Draymond Green is not suspended. Steph Curry is as awesome as he's ever been. Klay Thompson has accepted and embraced his role coming off the bench, and also had some real sad words about how this might be the end and I'm not going to play until I'm 40.
And it's really cute, though, how he's been like, we have the best unit that's ever come off a bench, and he's like proud of it.
Yeah, that's how you do it. But that role definition, that knowing what we're supposed to be doing is something they haven't had at every stage this season. And so now I think now that it's all coming together for them and Chris Paul is back, they've got an opportunity to do something special here down the stretch. The problem is, of course, Charlotte, the West is incredibly, incredibly stacked and difficult.
And young.
And young. That's all the oddball we have for today. Tune in next time when Tiger Woods is a guest star.